Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Becoming Chiron, the key to unlocking healing and personal alchemy, with me, your hostess, Ursula Duffy. So, we are doing another Astro-Weather Check today about the full moon in Aries that's incoming Thursday morning, Thursday. And I have a lot of things that I want to cover for today's Astro-Weather Check. And because it's occurring in the sign of Aries. And for the long-term game, as you all know, for me personally, I like to work with the lunar cycles in the long term. So this will be actually the culmination of the energies that were stirred and put into motion with that hugely popular total solar eclipse that we had in Aries back in the spring on April 8th. So, yes, on the short-term lunar cycle scale, it is the culmination of the energies from the total solar eclipse in Libra that we had back on October 2nd. However, long-term, I think that it's really important this time around, particularly to go back in time. So, what I'm going to do today is going to be a little bit different. It's not really a podcast episode. It's still just definitely an Astro-Weather Check, but I guess we could consider this kind of a hybrid episode again this time around because Chiron's involved again with this full moon. Chiron was involved with the new Aries new moon total solar eclipse back in the spring. So I feel like honoring especially that huge part of it is really important, especially this time around. So that's why I kicked it off with a Becoming Chiron intro. But like I said, this will definitely be a hybrid episode. So I'm going to go back in time and we're going to cover again a little bit the solar eclipse. And I'm finally ready to tell my story about my experience during that total solar eclipse. So we'll go back in time and cover that, and I'll share. And then we will look at the full moon that's incoming, cover up a couple of things I've seen, or not cover up, cover some things I've seen that are not actually true about the full moon that's incoming. So we'll do a little teaching moment opportunity there with that. Before I even get into the chart, we'll cover a couple astrology basics on eclipses. And then we'll pull a Peace Warrior card. I feel like this is the perfect deck for the energies that we're in and the energies that are incoming. And we'll touch on the really powerful energies that have really been building all month, but mostly intensifying this week in particular, leading up to the full moon, which is kind of setting the stage for the full moon. And I'll do a little update on where I'm at with things, and we'll close out for today. So I also want to cover Aries, just as a reminder for everybody, since I'm going to use a different deck than I did when I covered Chiron through the signs. That was the Black Moon Astrology deck, where I pulled a card for each zodiac sign and we reviewed the meaning of the sign and qualities and keywords and things like that. That's already been done and defined in the Chiron and Aries episode and other, Astro-Weather checks and episodes I've done that covered the sign of Aries. This time we'll read from the Star Codes deck because it's just a different perspective. It's a little bit shorter as far as the description goes, but this was a gift to me. And since I've been using this deck, I'm really liking the way that Heather Roan Robbins covers the qualities and definitions of the signs, planets, and everything. So we'll start there. And just as we usually do, time, date, check, stamp. It is 9:56 a.m. on Tuesday, October 15th, here in Atlantic City, New Jersey. So we have that documented. So let's dive in. Let's do Aries. So this is the card for Aries. As many of you probably already know, if you're familiar with astrology on a basic level, it's the sign of the Ram. It is the first sign of the zodiac. So this is like a full moon new year in a way. The last full moon that we had, the partial lunar eclipse in Pisces. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. So now we have our first full moon after the equinox. So we're now kicking off a new astrological year of full moons. Full moon in Aries, first sign of the zodiac, ruled by Mars. And we'll go a little bit deeper into that this time around. So here is the card. Beautiful Beautiful, capturing the energy of the ram, kind of just breaking through and coming through. Really, in an artistic way, capturing the energy of the sign of Aries in this illustration very, very well. So it is a fire element, which is also something I'll pull in. Cardinal fire. We have a lot of cardinal energy in the sky right now. So let me read to you the description for the Aries card. It's number 1. And the word for the card, the key word is act. Aries asks you to remember your personal fire, your reasons for being alive. It pumps up the volume on your life force. Its energy is raw, exhilarated, direct, rude, passionate, and looking for a challenge. Use your wisdom to focus this raw power and give it a goal. Aries is the cardinal fire sign whose fresh, brash enthusiasm is symbolized by a headstrong ram. It rules the head and imbues initiation, new beginnings, spontaneity, rebellion, and rebirth. The sun shines here roughly March 20th through April 20th. Action. Begin. Move into new territory. Cut to the chase. Be a hero. Feel the call to action and thoughtfully respond. Clear the air and clear the decks. Be crisp and to the point. Shoot from the hip. Set healthy boundaries just by being vibrantly alive. Express affection enthusiastically, spontaneously, and passionately. Work in short, intense bursts rather than long periods of deep concentration. Aries activates our inner adolescent. Direct orders can set off knee-jerk rebellion. Instead of telling others what to do or how they feel, express your own experience and opinion and speak in I terms. Set a challenge and let others find their own answers. Make sure all sides feel heard. If a person feels torn between meeting their own needs and meeting another's, they'll take care of their own needs first. So don't set this up as an either-or situation. Aries energy boils over quickly. If a situation threatens to erupt in conflict, get out, take a break, and come back later. Challenge. Accidents increase when you are in a hurry, rushing through a project, or impatiently distracted. This flammable temperament can spark inspiration or spark a conflagration. Proceed with caution. Gift. Aries marks the beginning of spring in the Northern Hemisphere. After a long, dark winter, the dead landscape comes alive. Plants that were shorn of leaves or dormant now breathe new life. This is a brave miracle, and it can be your miracle. Feel the flowing inner force. Trust this divine direction and summon the courage to begin. Okay, so that's Aries in a nutshell. I like this deck a lot because in the descriptions of one sign, the counterbalance, the polarity of the other opposing sign is pulled in, which I really love. So the parts about taking a break, cooling yourself down a little bit before reacting, kind of nipping the knee-jerk reactions in the bud, that kind of thing, kind of get more pulled in on the Libra side. So because the full moon is now coming in Aries, the sun's still in Libra, sun opposite moon, full moon, that dynamic of balance is there, and it's going to be key to remembering the peace part the seesaw energy between I and we, keeping your cool, remaining calm, collected, diplomatic, all these things are going to be coming into play as they always are when we have anything in Libra and Aries, but particularly with this full moon that's incoming. There is a lot of tension in the skies. The planetary rulers will come into play, and we'll look at that when we look at the chart. Our Mars and Venus, and where they are right now are not their happy place, and where they will be during the full moon are definitely not their happy place. So this lends itself to opportunities to work through the energies in a different way, which I feel is going to be extremely important to each of us individually, but also collectively, especially in the terms of what's going on right now in our country, but also in terms of the world and the conflicts that are just almost to this point of spilling over. So there's all that, but also the proceed with caution, just like always remember when we have anything going in Aries, especially a very intense full moon like the one we have incoming, just slow down, take a beat, take your time, avoid things that you're usually like could be risk prone for you or injury prone. Just be really careful because it's a full moon in this sign so close to Chiron. We're going to have like this bubbling over feeling that always comes with full moons anyway, but this time around it's going to just be extra intense, and we'll look at that. But for now, I want to go back in time. So I will include the link to the Astro-Weather Check that I did for the solar eclipse. I think that one was the one that I actually recorded during an earthquake that we had here in New Jersey. I can't remember if it was that one. I think it was. So if you're new here, I'll just kind of recap that whole experience for me. And now I will finally share the story of what I experienced during the solar eclipse. So I traveled this time around. The last time that we had a total solar eclipse visible across the United States was back in August of 2017. And that was the one that kind of kickstarted my whole remembering of astrology journey, which I tell that story in season 1 in several episodes. So you can go back in time to those episodes if you want to hear the full story there. But I just was obsessed with this eclipse, the one back in 2017, and there's reason for it. And I tell the whole story in those episodes. But long story short, I wanted to go see it. Here in New Jersey, if I stayed put, it was about 97% coverage. So it just ended up being too much of a hassle to try and travel and get time off, and the expense and the crowds that were already kind of like, we kind of looked at it a little too late and hotels were already booked and all that. Too far of a drive to make it back in time and all that. So I decided not to honor the urge to go experience it in person, just to stay put and get, whatever I could see here. So I went to the beach I think it was in Ventnors where I watched it that time around. So I did experience a physical reaction to that eclipse. And when I did not get to go experience it in totality in person that time around, I had my eyes and heart set on going for the one that I knew was coming in this year, in 2024. So that was a very long-term goal, 7-year kind of eyes on the prize, like, travel was planned way in advance. We made it happen. So the last one in 2017, I had some what I tied it to, just kind of digestive reactions. My body kind of felt odd for several days after. Definitely like solar plexus activation type stuff, because that's the energy chakra in the body that corresponds to the planet Mars, but also to the sun. So I was having digestive issues, I guess I'll put it in those terms. I'll go a little deeper into it when I share the next story. For several days after the eclipse, I just upset stomach. Things just weren't right. Felt kind of off, almost like a little bit of a stomach bug to an extent is the way I'll just put it. And I just recognized that I had a physical reaction to it. And I wasn't in the path of totality at that point. Remember this. So fast forward 7 years to the spring. And like I said, traveled to, in that episode, I shared that I was going, and went to Syracuse. That was in the path. We were originally going to go to Cleveland, but then it ended up being more budget friendly to go a little bit closer to Syracuse. So my husband and I traveled to Syracuse, New York. We got there on the 7th of April, and we stayed there for the 8th, which was the day of the eclipse, and then came back home on the 9th. With my body's been synced with the moon for a very long time, with my own personal moon cycles. So that had actually started the day before we left. So that Saturday in the late evening. So there was that kind of happening. Then I felt okay on Sunday. I think it was a Sunday. I know I have the chart up. Let me just double check that. That was a Monday. Yeah, the eclipse was on a Monday. Okay. So yeah, I felt okay on Sunday, the day that we left. My stomach was a little off, but I kind of attributed it to the other stuff I had going on. And we got there safely. Everything was good. It was a crystal clear day, not a cloud in the sky. And we got up the morning of the eclipse on that Monday. I knew that it was incoming in the afternoon, so we kind of planned the day around it, obviously, because we were there for that. Figured there was a parking garage next to the hotel. There was a park across the street, so we didn't really go anywhere to go see it. We figured we could just go right outside because that seemed like the best place to view it because we had a clear view of the sky in both areas, which was cool. So, excuse me. I was able to eat breakfast that day. And just, to clear up any suspicions about this being a stomach bug or food poisoning, my husband and I ate all the same things the entire time. Like we shared meals. I didn't eat anything that I'd never eaten before on this trip at all. So I had breakfast. It was probably like 9:30, 10 o'clock. Went back to the hotel. And to kind of get, our things together and figure out what we wanted, because we were going to be outside for several hours. And as the time got closer and closer to the window of when the moon was going to start passing over the sun, I started getting physically violently ill. Like I had a stomach flu, extreme nausea, extreme on the other side, extreme. Almost like something I've only experienced a few times in my life when I actually had a stomach flu or stomach bug. And also like just regular flu. Like my body just started feeling really weird, off, just temperature wise. Obviously, the solar plexus connection that I've already shared in overdrive, just I didn't know if I was going to make it outside to actually witness this. The other thing that was a little bit odd was it was very clear. It was like partly cloudy in the morning when we went out for breakfast, and there was pretty much like this cloud deck rolled in around noon and just stayed. So, I'm already like, oh my God, are we not going to see this? We traveled so far. I planned this for 7 years. Like I had all that kind of going too. But the physical reaction that I had, I could not eat anything. The only thing I could drink was water. I had waves of chills and heat going through my body, digestive issues. Thankfully, nothing coming out. No vomiting, thankfully, but extreme nausea. I could not smell any food. I could not smell anything really. Otherwise, it would just make me feel like I was going to get sick. And I had extreme issues on the other side. So make it downstairs. Almost missed the beginning of it because the issues I was having were so intense. I needed to just be very close to a bathroom. Get outside. And we got, we had the glasses and everything. We were totally prepared. So we just, I make it to, we started off on the top of the parking garage, and I couldn't be up there because the kitchen vent was coming out for some reason up there, and I couldn't smell the food. It was just making me so totally like just nauseated beyond belief. Like I couldn't even stand. Just like physically weak. So we get finally like if I walk as slow as I can, get downstairs. We get over to the park across the street from the hotel, and we just find a bench with there's a bunch of other people there at this point. So just sit down and look up. As the eclipse is starting, it's the solar ones are a little bit slower. So the sun's starting to get covered at this point, and I'm just like, I have to sit in one spot. I can't move, smell anything. Like, thankfully, at this point, I didn't have to be so close to a bathroom. Just, I just felt like I was having an out of body experience to an extent. It was just bizarre. So the clouds start to break up a little bit, and we start being able to see, which I saw the last time, thankfully, like the moon starting to cover the sun. And then we get to the window where the totality is starting to happen. And I'm telling you, if anybody watching or listening to this has ever experienced a total solar eclipse, one, I want to hear from you if you experienced the body reactions that I did, but also just in general. Like, I will never, ever, ever in my life again travel to go see a total solar eclipse. One, because of the issues that I experienced, and I now know what I need to do in preparation for next time, because we will have another one eventually in this country that covers some part, and we'll be in the path of something in 20 years, I think it is. It is the most eerie yet fascinating experience, and because of everything, one and done, never again. So as the moon starts to cover the sun, and there were breaks in the clouds, thankfully there was still like a thin layer that we could see the eclipse through. With you can take the glasses off for the moments that the totality is happening, but I just got like the temperature. This was in April. It was warm. The temperature drop, the experience of the total darkness that happens, the animals' reactions, and just the overall eeriness of it. That's it. Best word I have to explain it is eeriness. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. It was terrifying, but also like incredibly beautiful. Like, I definitely cried because I had wanted to see this for so long. But just everything that happened, like the streetlights come on, it's the middle of the afternoon. It's the weirdest thing. It's just the weirdest thing ever. And then once the temperature dropped, I just got so cold. I was shivering all over. I couldn't get rid of the chills. I hadn't eaten anything at this point for many hours. All I could do was sip water. So the totality happened. Got to see that, which I'm so grateful and honored to have been able to witness that, for all the plans to work to get to that moment, for the planning for 7 years for it to actually happen was just like, I think that was part of the intense emotion I was experiencing also. But so as soon as the moon started to move back over in the other direction, I was like, okay, I just need to get back in the room, in bed. Like, I need to get rid of these chills. The other thing that was really strange was I had chills and was very cold, but my body was like a furnace. Like, if when I touched my skin, I was hot. I wasn't sweating. It wasn't like I had a fever. My body was just hot. It was like my solar plexus got activated and was in overdrive in some way. So I just got right back into bed under the covers, just like almost pulled over my head. Like, I just wanted kombucha at this point. Like, I had it. I was done. Like, it took me out in a way like I had never been taken out before by anything else, because it wasn't a bug. It wasn't a food reaction issue. It was like a physical reaction to an astrological event. And I'm still kind of in the space of trying to figure out what happened, even though like I'm not trying to intellectualize it in any way, but like having Chiron in the first house, I don't know if because Chiron was so involved with that eclipse, like I'm not sure if that was part of the connection or just the fact that it was Aries is my 12th house. So that's like unseen forces and things, but the fact that I had a similar experience to the one where it wasn't totally covered back in 2017, it just makes me kind of think about the stories of the indigenous people and other cultures and people from different, religious beliefs and historic backgrounds and ancient times, and how I've learned in my studies that they used to prepare for eclipses by making sure that they stayed in prayer during the moments that it was happening and covering their food, fasting, not going outside. So I think that this is like a direct experience that related back to the origin of why these people did what they did. So for the next time, I'm going to incorporate those practices. I don't have similar reactions to lunar eclipses. It's just the solar ones. It's very strange. So I started feeling better progressively as the moon moved on, like as the total, like as it got down from 100% to zero, the moon moves on. It's daytime again. I started feeling better. I was able to get out of bed and go down to the lobby and just finally like ask if they had kombucha or anything, which they didn't. Unfortunately, I wasn't strong enough yet to kind of go outside looking for some. So I just got some more water, went back upstairs and stayed in bed the rest of the afternoon into the night. And then the next morning I woke up. I wasn't, I didn't eat anything, I don't think, until not the day that we got back, but the following mid morning was the first time I was able to actually eat something. Thankfully, the symptoms had gone away. I think I had one more issue shortly after, before the totality, the moon was completely away from the sun. But just like the timing of it too, like the timing where the symptoms started to when they were the most intense was right around totality to then the subsiding of everything. My body was still really hot all night. But other than that, I started feeling better. Like I wasn't able to eat, but I was able to smell food again. So that was okay, but still like nothing going in, like a total cleansing out of my system. So it was quite something. So I just want to remind everyone of the chart. Let's just go back in time. Like I said, I'll include the episode that I did on that new moon total solar eclipse, but let's just go back here real quick and let's revisit our chart. So we had the stellium, all these planets in Aries. We had the sun, Chiron, and the moon all together to the arc minute. So we knew going into this that this was going to be a very powerful, potent, things to be revealed kind of moment in time. We had Mercury retrograde very close, still not visible in the sky, at the same degree where the full moon is going to be on Thursday. So Mercury's involvement here as well. We had everything kind of clustered on this one side of the zodiac. Super intense configuration in the sky, but then also, as I always love to say, with this whole Becoming Chiron project, it's really all about the lived experience. So that was my lived experience, and I had no idea that that was going to happen. No clue. It just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I just had to work through it and adapt as best I could to be able to be outside to experience this, because that was my intention. That was my hope and dream for so long. So I dragged myself out there, but I would have preferred to be in bed and inside during that moment, during that few minutes that the totality was happening. Okay. So now let's stop the share for a moment. So now we have, for the long term 6-month game, new moon in one sign to full moon in the same sign, the culmination of these energies that were seeded, planted, set in motion at the time of that total solar eclipse on April 8th. So that is one key thing I want everyone to think about going into Thursday. I think that, especially because of the fact that full moons are very much about releasing of things, it's really important, especially because that one was so powerful, to really spend some time going back in time to April 8th and what was happening around that point in your life, and really think about the journey of the last 6 months. So let's go to the chart for Thursday's full moon. So this will be the 17th at 7:26 a.m. here on the East Coast in Atlantic City. So one cool thing that I want to mention is, for us here, the moon will be reaching peak fullness as it's setting. So, oh wait, I'm not sharing. Hang on one sec. Good thing I caught that. Okay. The moon will be full just after it drops below the horizon. So this is cool if it's going to be a clear day on Thursday morning. It's usually like it'll rise almost full the night before, but as it's setting, it's going to be full. So that's actually kind of cool. Like if you can get up around this time, if you're already up, try and watch the moon set. The sun is rising later and later now as we're getting into the winter months here on the East Coast and in the Northern Hemisphere. So you don't have to get up super early to catch this, which is cool. And yeah, so if it's clear, try and catch the moon set because it'll be almost full as it's going down. So here's our chart. And then the one thing that I did want to kind of touch on first, like I alluded to in the beginning, is the rulers. So we have the ruler of Libra, where the sun is at 24 degrees at this moment of the full moon in Scorpio. And we have Mars, the ruler of the moon, and Chiron and the North Node in Cancer at 22 degrees. So this is an interesting dynamic that I think is going to add layers and undertones to whatever is going to be surfacing this week going into the full moon and during the time of the full moon. And we still have the full experience kind of a few days afterwards. So Venus rules the sign of Taurus in Scorpio. Venus is, like I said, not exactly happy place moments, but adds layers to the energies that allow us and give us the opportunity, like I said, to see things a little bit differently. Venus in Scorpio, it's really so much about our deepest desires and our deepest emotions and those connections to them. So, like I said in the last Astro-Weather Check that I did for the Libra new moon total solar eclipse back on the 2nd, the tagline that I gave that was "Flush the toilet." And there was good reason for that. One, it was because of the energies, because it was a South Node eclipse. Venus also was in Scorpio at that point. So we have a lot of Venus action kind of dictating what's being released at this time, with a very, very, very significant emphasis on emotional depth. Your connection to things that may have emotional attachments that need to be released, flushed, broken. Relationships come into play as well because the sun is still in Libra. The other thing that is really important to note here is these energies, we're having a lot of like last time in our lifetime moments this week at the full moon moving into November. So I'll get into that next. But just looking at the planetary rulers, and then also kind of my experience with the solar eclipse, if anyone out there had anything similar with digestive issues and problems like that related to a physical reaction to an astronomical event, flushing the toilet was a huge part of that for me. So this is like, as we pull in the Aries energy, it like the card is action. Full moon is sort of like this full moon. It's a closing out of a lot of things. So last chance, last gasp, like the end of eclipse season, it's all kind of culminating right now. So take advantage of the opportunities and the energy. The guidance that I've been giving all along since the South Node has been going through Libra since July of 2023 was release of things that disturb your peace, release of things that throw you off balance, throw you off kilter, take away from your ability to have your own sense of equilibrium. We've seen a lot of quote unquote release of peace, stirring of conflict on a global stage as well. So this full moon in particular is extremely powerful just in the sense that the rulers are teaching us something about looking at things and acting on things in a different way. And there's a lot of energy involved in emotional release in a healthy way. Boundaries also come into mind here. So the connection that Venus is making also to the planet Neptune gives us an opportunity to kind of willfully remove our rose-colored glasses in our overall view and where we're at in our relationships. But also like our connection to everything we love and value. I'm going to keep repeating that meaning of Venus. Like it's time to get really real and honest about a lot of things. There's also the element involved with this that Mercury is now in Scorpio and has been since the 13th, since Sunday. So that just gives us a laser focus, truth serum type energy as well to all of this. Like hidden things getting revealed, like stop lying to yourself, denial has to come off the table. Like there's a lot of having things through the scorpionic lens at this time, like all week and leading up to the full moon, I think is a gift in a way. Like I have Mercury in Scorpio natally, and it can have tendencies to obsess, especially about things that trigger deep emotions. Like sometimes I do tend myself to even still get in these loops of thought that I need to get myself out of before I spiral. It's been a theme for me my entire life. So, I mean, having that placement natally, I can speak from experience, but it's one of the things I love most about my chart because of the ability to see the unseen, to notice things that usually don't get noticed, and to really just like the brutal honesty that comes with it. Like, there is tact involved with things because you have to kind of be with Mars and Cancer, and I'll touch on that next, like have grace with people. If somebody's not ready to hear something, maybe just don't say it or something, but the brutal honesty element here is there regardless because the planet of our mindset, perspective, and communication is in the sign of bringing deep things up to the surface. So keep your cool. As we talked about in the Aries card, with Mars and Cancer ruling the full moon and the Aries territory right now, we have an upcoming Mars retrograde. So I will touch on that in future Astro-Weather checks and pieces and that kind of thing, horoscopes. we're already getting a preview of this vibe. The pre-retrograde shadow for the upcoming Mars retrograde started on October 4th, so shortly after the last eclipse, the new moon in Libra. So with Cancer energy, it is one of its biggest lessons is emotional maturity and authenticity. To not fall into the adolescent behavior patterns, to really pay close attention to the triggers, but also the feelings, desires, motivation underlying action. And to remember that it's okay to be vulnerable. Like, look at all of Brene Brown's work on vulnerability. That comes into key as well with Cancerian energy. This need to protect, nurture, feel safe. All of these things are going to be bubbling up for all of us individually and collectively, not only under the energy of this full moon, but clear through into like early to mid 2025 with the Mars retrograde kind of adding this other intensity and layer of energy involved with everything that's happening right now, but in particular the fact that it's the ruler of the full moon. And it connects with Venus. So we've had this grand cross, cardinal cross building in the sky all week. And we've had this water trine that I touched on last time between Mars, Venus. It was Saturn, now it's Neptune. So we've had this emotional undertone of everything involved in all of the energies. Now the baton's getting passed on from Saturn, which was there, that water trine was there with Saturn at the new moon. Now it's being passed to Neptune, which is a completely different energy. This is why I said it allows us to take off the rose-colored glasses. It's really the best way that I could put it. Because Mars is involved, we get the action-oriented piece. Neptune does speak to things that are fantasy, delusion, denial, escapism, that kind of thing. But it also gives us the power to really drop into our imagination and get really creative with the cardinal energy involved in the cross, to be inventive and creative and find things and solutions that are new. We have this piece here of Pluto. Finally, Pluto just stationed this week. This is the last time that Pluto will now be in direct motion over this last degree of Capricorn in any of our lifetimes. And Pluto squares the full moon. So let's talk about that piece of it now. This is the last time in any of our lifetimes that we will have the sun squaring the planet Pluto with Pluto in Capricorn. The fact that this square is involved with the energy of the full moon is really, really, really important. And the way that I wrote about it in the horoscopes that'll be released on Thursday was there's definitely energy culminating with this full moon of hidden things coming to the surface. This last like nail in the coffin type moment, or like the wrecking ball kind of finally bringing the whole thing down. Like, this is a good also key point for reflection with the energy of this full moon incoming, to think back, like the guidance I've been giving all along with this as well, is think back to 2008 when Pluto went into Capricorn, and personally how you've gone through some kind of deconditioning, destruction type process for wherever it was happening in your own chart. But also think about nationally and globally, like the systems that Capricorn usually relates to are finance and government and that kind of thing. So this is like the final wrecking ball moment, but the fact that the sun is involved too right now with the full and the moon, like we have our consciousness and then also our subconscious behavior patterns involved with this wrecking ball energy right now, moving into and culminating at the time of the full moon, but also on the other side of the full moon. because the sun will be at 24 degrees of Libra and the moon at 24 degrees of Libra at the time of the full moon, but that square won't really come into exactness until several days later before the sun shifts into Scorpio on the 22nd. So the energy still builds even after the full moon. Last time, Sun in Libra will square Pluto in Capricorn in any of our lifetimes. And Libra brings in judicial system things, fairness, balance, the scales of justice. So there's a lot happening here for all of us. And something will brew to that boiling point because that's just the energy that we're in. Something is definitely coming. I don't know what, but the energy is there for something big. And then it's up to us. Remember, like everything I've shared, everything that I've said, when we have these moments where it's really tense, the cardinal squares, the squares in general, they are threshold moments. They force action. It's that S or get off the pot moment energy. So the fact that we also have Mars involved, so we have this big T square or a grand square happening in the sky. So this pulls in all of the cardinal signs. So if you have anything natally in a cardinal sign, you'll probably feel this a little bit more. But tension is brewing. And we'll have, I believe, 3 of these, which doesn't usually happen. Mars opposite Pluto, which is building at the time of the full moon. It's not quite there. Mars will be at 22 degrees Cancer and Pluto at 29 degrees Capricorn. So it's within orb. Sometimes I'll use 10 degrees depending, but it's there. It's building, it's brewing. And Mars will swing back and forth in opposition to Pluto, I believe, like I said, 3 times because of the retrograde that's coming. But I'll touch on that more eventually. But just know that energy is also there. And that's not the most kind vibe with Mars and Pluto opposing each other. And then also bringing in the square that the full moon brings in to the equation. So big energy. But remember, it's cardinal energy. So we have the chance of a new beginning with all of it, like a clean slate. Once that wrecking ball moment comes and is done, the building is down. And now we have the chance to create something new and great opportunity to affect change. And we ripple out. So however we do this personally, individually, in our own actions, in our own communities, or whatever it is, it ripples out for sure. We all have power in this. We are not powerless. Power dynamics will definitely be coming into play in some way, but let's look at the things that we really have on our side. Chiron, Jupiter. This is another one where all the planets are at the table once again. We have the healing opportunity potential. We have whatever was seeded at the time of that Aries new moon total solar eclipse back in the spring, with the full moon coming in at roughly the same degree. Very interesting because that's where Mercury was. So we have this change of mind, change of perspective, thinking about things differently, seeing things through a new lens, this new Aries energy, all kind of there still. North Node in Aries still. The path forward, having it be something new, creating something new, like everything I talked about when I read the description from the Aries card. And that, like I keep saying, this is all very personal, but all very collective as well. Chiron is at 21 degrees of Aries at the time of the full moon, also right now. Jupiter is at 21 degrees of Gemini. This is a sextile. So these two are in direct communication about expanding the vision, identifying and healing where we may have been misled, misinformed, recognizing that, taking off the rose-colored glasses, getting out of denial and disillusionment, and thinking about a new way forward that also has an undertone or a layer of an opportunity to heal, an opportunity to become a master of our sense of self and our identities and all of this. Think big, think different. We have Jupiter on our side in all of this. because of the communication. Jupiter's in Chiron's cave, I guess is the way I could say it, to borrow a line from my astrology teacher. Like, Chiron's been definitely dosing us with some potent medicine since it's been in Aries, since spring of 2018. If you have Chiron and Aries natally, you're going through your Chiron return, or you already have been at this point. If it's in later degrees, it's on for you. The United States is also going through a Chiron return right now. So this is really key to a lot of things involved in our cosmic connection to what's happening right now. The other thing that is just still really there, present, potent, is this connection that is going on with all of these planets at the outer planets at the late degrees of their signs. And then Venus is kind of there joining the party at this moment of the full moon. So that kite pattern I talked about when we did the Pisces full moon lunar eclipse moment, like that whole energy is still there. We have a chance to kind of stay in the higher vibration, to stay in the optimism of things, to co-create with the universe what comes and what's reborn out of the destruction, the Pluto destruction. So that's a lot. We also have a building yod again with the sun. So the yod, I talked about this, the finger of God moment. I forget which lunation it was, but it was one of the past Astro-Weather checks. I don't remember if it was a new moon or full moon. I think it was a new moon where we had this, it's a destiny with the purification of our consciousness. Moving forward, and I'll get to the Peace Warrior card next to close this out after I cover the misinformation that I've been seeing. We have Uranus, the planet of revolution, change, surprise, rebellion, in this very potent collaboration with Neptune, with Pluto also. But the yod, you can see this green triangle right here, at the moment of the full moon, is connected to the sun and will be closer and closer after the full moon before the sun moves out of Libra. So we really have a chance to shine, and that whole adage of the light shines or gets through where the cracks are. We have that moment and that opportunity available to us now as this tension is brewing, but also through into next week, early next week, before the sun moves on. It'll still kind of be there when it's in the early degrees of Scorpio, but it'll culminate as it gets to these later degrees of Libra, as it squares Pluto for the last time in our lifetimes in this configuration. Like, there's so much blessings in disguise energy. I think maybe that'll be the tagline for this full moon. Blessings in disguise. Because the things that were seeded and planted in those dark moments, especially because the United States was in that eclipse path, it divided the country this time between West and East rather than North and South, like the 2017 one. Like, there's a relationship to the energy of the shadow path on the Earth as well, as far as things that come out of wherever the eclipse happened. And eclipse energies can run like 6 months to years out after the eclipse actually happens. So Chiron planted and Mercury planted some really potent seeds back then, 6 months ago, that are now sprouting and coming and fruiting and blooming in all of us, but also collectively. Chiron is the master. Chiron's the maverick. As I say, that's my tagline for every single episode. So dig through the soil a little bit and find the blessings. They're there. We just have to see them and take action on them and create something new. With the cardinal energy, even though it's intense, it's on our side. So, the misinformation. From 2 different sources now, 2 people that I have been into their work now for many years. One's an astrologer, one's not. I've heard put out information It was actually in emails that I received. I'm on their email list that this full moon's an eclipse. It's not. So I just want to clear that up. More of the information, like that was only two out of a lot of lists that I'm on and people whose work that I deeply respect and admire. Who said that? So I just want to clear that up. If you've heard this from these same sources or other sources of other people that are saying the similar thing, we had 4 eclipses in 2024. The last eclipse was the total solar eclipse in Libra on the new moon in Libra. That was on the 2nd of October. That was the last eclipse of 2024. I triple checked my software. I triple checked timeanddate.com and looking at the chart. And this is my teaching moment for today. Only 4 eclipses. We can have more than 4. That's happened. It happens. So with eclipses, so as I always teach and say and remind everybody, when we start getting into these topics during the Astro-Weather checks, they're always when a sun gets in proximity to one of the nodes of the moon. So that total solar eclipse that we had was real tight, close to the south node. The sun or the moon has to be within a specific number of degrees of a node to have an eclipse. So you can have a node and a full moon or a new moon in the same sign, and it not necessarily be an eclipse. So with the moon, it has to be within roughly 11, 12 degrees of a node to have an eclipse. The moon, like I've been saying, at this time of the full moon is at 24 degrees of Aries. The north node right now is at 5. So that is not 11, 12 degrees. This is not an eclipse, even though the full moon is happening in the same sign as the node. The sun is a little bit bigger of a swath. It's like 17 degrees. So last eclipse was 2 weeks ago. This is the closer of eclipse season. So yes, we've still been in the season because the new moon happened. That was the last eclipse. And now this is the lunation after that new moon, which is a full moon season closer. Not an eclipse. The next eclipse will be in March of next year, and we'll cover that when we get there. But you can check timeanddate.com. They don't have any eclipses listed until the total lunar that we'll have in March of next year. So I just want to clear that up for anybody that's listening to me here now that actually heard or saw that from somebody else. This is not an eclipse. Not a lunar eclipse at all. We had the lunar eclipse already back in Pisces in September. So just want to use that as a teaching moment, just to go a little bit deeper into the material. And since we're looking at the charts now in the video episodes, which you can see on YouTube and Spotify, 5 plus 11 is 16. 5 plus 12 is 17. North node at 5 degrees, full moon at 24. Not even close. So just wanted to clear that up, as I feel like it's my job. And for anybody that really is into looking at the charts, that's watching this and with me now and has been with me since I've been doing the videos, this gives me such great teaching opportunity, even more because I can demonstrate and look at things, which I love because I love teaching too. Okay, so let's wrap the full moon up there. Find the blessings in disguise is our tagline, because I want to add the action piece into the phrase. Actually, bear with me for one moment because I want to write that down so I don't forget it. Find the blessings in disguise. Okay, so we got that. The tagline usually comes to me right before or during the episode. So let us pull our Peace Warrior card, considering everything that we've talked about, because we all get to be the Peace Warriors in all this. So, angels, what does everybody need to know for today? Feeling it real. Numbing is not the answer. Card number 22. Oh, love that. Love that so much. Neptune, no. We are feeling this. Grand Water Trine, we are feeling this. Emotions will be running high. things will be getting intense. Our jobs are to feel the feelings, release what's no longer serving. All of the usual guidance for full moons totally applies, but in a much bigger way right now with the intensities that we're in. So, what is the message from the All right. Numbing is not the answer. We live in an emotionally impulsive society based on instant gratification, instant satisfaction, and instant response with the developments of technology. But what we forget is that the human being is based on emotional experiences, which are necessary for soul evolution. When we silence, push, or suppress, we are robbing ourselves of the experience of growth, honesty, and emotion. Alcohol, pills, heroin, and other mind-altering substances are not the answer in solving life's problems, but yet the starting point to chaos. These only create patterns of poor coping mechanisms that will further complicate your earthly journey. Angel action. Feel your feelings. Journal your feelings. Journaling is a great way to speak honestly to yourself. You can't lie to yourself on paper. Accept and acknowledge your feelings without judgment. Talk to someone. For some, this may be someone close to you, but for others, it may be a professional from whom you don't feel judgment. Check in with yourself to make sure the coping mechanisms you have put in place are working for you. And then the personal message from Colleen, the author of this deck. I used to feed my emotions with food, even when I wasn't hungry. Stuffing food down my throat was like stuffing down the feelings that I tried to deny. When I started journaling, I realized that the food was creating a distraction from the greater picture, that I never allowed myself to feel or speak up about my feelings. Once I understood and embraced that food is fuel and not comfort, everything changed when I started to feel my emotions and not feed them. Oh, as usual, I feel like that is a mic drop moment. I wanted to mention that Aries energy feels like chaos. So that was a good reminder for me to pull that one part in. I had that thought swirling, but I really just felt kind of called to go off the cuff with this episode. No notes, no nothing. So thank you for that reminder, angels. The number of the card, that energy, the chaos that can feel like, you know, so potent just during full moons in general, totally amplified right now with the energies that we have going. But also, I always feel like that energy of spring is very chaotic. Like it kind of throws me off balance to an extent because I have all this energy in Libra in my chart and nothing in Aries. So that always just feels like extra to me. So the chaos will ensue for sure. And that's just because it's part of the energy. But also, what she mentions as far as numbing. So, yes, substance abuse goes into those categories, but also addiction to anything. So, it doesn't have to be a substance, it can be food, like she touches on. It can also be just checking out, like with television, with social media, with anything that your mechanism is to check out. Doesn't have to be a substance. I just want to mention that. And that totally goes into the Neptunian energy involved as well, which we covered in the Pisces full moon episode. So remember all of this. This is meant to be there for you, to inform, to educate, to guide. Please do what you can individually to put these things into practice with everything that I've shared today in the energies that we have that are just going to build from here and have been already. Like I said, we got the preview of the Mars retrograde that's coming up starting on the 4th. So I'm here with you. I'm here to guide you. I'm not quite sure where I'm at as far as my free content. The crowdfunding campaign ended on my birthday last Sunday on the 6th. And although there were many gifts of just doing that and going through that whole process and putting that out there, the financial part is still where I'm a little needing to figure things out. So I'm actually taking a class tomorrow on podcasting and trying to figure out how to grow this to the point where I can monetize. So I'm kind of in my own spark of initiation action territory at the moment. So as we move forward, I will be putting a virtual tip jar link in every episode description, which leads you to our Sea Goddess Healing Arts digital business card, which has links for our Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal on it. So if you're particularly guided, helped, aha'd, whatever, through any episode that I put out from here on out, I'm not sure what schedule I'm going to be on moving forward. So I don't know when the next Astro-Weather Check will be or the next podcast episode. I will definitely be continuing uninterrupted with the horoscopes, so they will always be there and provided to everybody on our socials, in Shore Local, obviously, and also in our email list. So subscribe, follow on either of those, any of all of those platforms to get your horoscopes for the upcoming weeks ahead. But the virtual tip jar will be there. I'm also keeping the subscription option for the podcast, which is available through the Spotify version, which you can also link to it from the other platforms. There's a link in the top for $8.99 a month donation to just support me financially if you're able to. But the virtual tip jar will be there. So that's just, if you just want to throw me some bones for an episode, whatever amount you want, that's there. It's not limited to $8.99. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm still I've had some other things going on and I've been a little busy this past week. So I'm just sort of paying attention, just want to get clear of eclipses in myself. This is all happening in my 12th house. As I shared earlier, Aries is my 12th. So it's with 12th house stuff for anybody. It's a very unknown territory. It's sub and unconscious things. So my own Aries parts have definitely been coming more online with all of this energy that we've had in Aries, especially over the last year and a half at this point. I also have some personal things on my own chart, drawing energy into that space. So how that kind of looks and feels is I create something and I put it out there and I have no idea, unless you give me feedback, who's hearing it, listening to it, seeing it, judging it, whatever, reacting to it. That's just the 12th house space. And when I think one of the calendar, the Louise Hay, I Can Do It affirmations I shared back in April around that new moon total solar eclipse was I continued to create. It was perfect for that moment too, just not knowing who it's going to serve. And I trust that it'll serve the people that need to hear it. And it won't serve the people that aren't ready or don't or whatever. I'm not going to stop creating at this point. So I just have to figure out the other financial side of it. So that's where I'm at. Like I said, I don't know when the next one's going to be. Horoscopes will come every Thursday. The ones that will come out on Thursday will be focused on the full moon for your rising sign. So stay tuned for those. And with this episode, I'll share, we didn't get to share last week, the ones that came out last Thursday, which focus on the building cardinal cross in the sky for your rising sign. So those will be linked in this episode as well as go out via email to our email list when I share this episode in a few hours. So that is my little update on where I'm at with everything. On the other side of the crowdfunding, I actually reorganized my whole page. So all my offerings are in a much more organized fashion and set. So, readings are still there, from budget-friendly one-question email readings at $44 all the way up to a complete 2-hour, two-session, in-depth natal chart transits reading that I have as one of my offerings. And I will be back at the Sage Lady on Thursday in person for in-person readings this Thursday, the 17th, the day of the full moon. So if you're available, you're around, if you maybe took the week off because of yesterday's holiday, I am there. You can book ahead online if that's preferred, and I'll include a link for that as well. Just a reminder, if you're local in the South Jersey area, I'm there the first and third Thursdays of every month at the Sage Lady inside Zen Landing Wellness Studio in Mays Landing, New Jersey. And we'll be doing a Sea Goddess event on the 26th in Hamilton. We'll all be there doing readings. It's called Witches Night Out, and that'll be Saturday the 26th. I think it's 6 to 9 at Iliano's in Hamilton. So I'm also available in person for readings. Birth chart basics is what I'm calling them, because they'll be about 15-20 minutes. So those must be booked ahead of time. So I'll include a link for that as well. Mandy will also be there doing angelic tarot, and Jesse will be there doing oracle and mediumship readings. So we'll all be there as a team for that event, which will be fun. So I'm going to close it out for today there. I've gone on long enough. I think I've said everything I wanted to say. I've covered everything I wanted to cover. I finally shared my total solar eclipse story. And remember to be kind, to open your mind, and to be a maverick. Bye.